Bert Kreischer has become one of the biggest comedians working today, and I'm not just talking about his engorged gullet poking from his extra-large t-shirt. I'm talking about selling tickets at some of the biggest venues across the United States. But he's also gained a notable amount of haters and detractors as well for some of his more insufferable personality traits. However, one thing Bert's fans and haters alike can agree with is that his current lifestyle is unsustainable and might be what leads him to an early grave. Comedian Stavros Halkias recently made a great point about this on his podcast, Two Bears, One Cave.
I'm always fascinated. I mean this as a compliment because your generation has a work ethic that's different than our generation. Like, I can't stop working. And I remember like you, DeStefano, your whole group of guys were all like, yo, work enough so that you can enjoy life.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, because I think this idea that you have to constantly be doing more and more is so fucked up and poisonous, I think.
Yeah.
And that's like, that is the problem with America to me is the like, capitalism's good up until the point where you just have to keep going. And it's like, why don't you just find the place where it's nice and stop? Why do we have to why do shareholders always want more? Why can't you just be a profitable business and get to see your family and get to do all these things? And I mean, most of the people my age are working fucking just to survive. So it's almost like this thing of the best thing you could do is if you're successful is like actually just get to live like what a middle-class person got to live like, one generation ago. Like the middle class doesn't exist anymore. So all I want is to, have a good time, make some stuff that's fun, and then figure out being happy. Because the other thing is, being successful doesn't fucking make you happy. Yeah. Doesn't necessarily make you happy. You just gotta.
I'll tell you, being unsuccessful makes you sad.
I really think Stavros nails it here as to why what Bert is doing can't really be sustained. I don't dislike Bert Kreischer, but I do think he is a victim of the mindset that you need to constantly be chasing this cultural dragon of bigger and better everything, like bigger venues, bigger tours, bigger private jets, bigger tour buses, and much more. I don't want this to come off as me attacking Bert, because I'm not, but I genuinely do think that keeping up with this lifestyle in his 50s could lead to some serious problems down the road physically and spiritually for the big fella. Working for a great life and then just enjoying it while also sustaining the current level of success you're at is a totally fine thing to do, because like Stavros said, most people nowadays are fighting to survive, and sadly given the financial crisis, a lot of people will probably never really reach a point where they can take a step back and appreciate everything they've worked for. I'm not saying that you can't pursue bigger and better things, by the way. That's a fantastic thing to do if it's what your heart truly desires. Just don't let the chase of bigger and better drive you insane, or you'll end up just like Randy Marsh chasing the dragon in Heroin Hero.
Hang on, I almost caught the dragon.
This podcast would end up being kind of like a therapy session if you listen to the entire thing. And according to Podcast Cringe, a lot of these episodes with Bert and other comedians turn out this way, but I don't watch a lot of them personally aside from making content on them occasionally. There's another point Bert makes later on about how for a while he thought he was never going to be famous. And then he mentions how there's always somebody more famous than you, and the example he gives is quite surprising.
And so like I remember not being like thinking, am I cool with the fact that I'm 44 and it's not going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
And people know it's not going to happen. And people would look past you. They'd look past you at a party or look and you're in the hallway of the store and they're like, oh shit, Chris D'Elia's here. And they'd walk right past you and you'd be like, okay. And that's your life.
What's Chris D'Elia's life like right now? You know what I mean? Like the point is success if your personal life isn't right. If you might have a couple kooky habits, your personal life, it's like your success is not going to save you from that. And that's also, I think, a lot of your psychology too, of like, maybe that's true because people are shitty, but how you wanted to be perceived didn't match up with like your perception maybe, but
of how I felt about myself.
Right. And also it's like, but that's what you can control. And sorry, now we're just getting into like fucking therapy and like philosophy.
I like this. I would be curious to hear D'Elia's perspective if he's happier now that his life is less chaotic, less crazy with his kid.
That really wasn't what I was talking about. I wasn't really talking about him slowing down career-wise. That was the negatives with Chris D'Elia. I was kind of talking about some other stuff he was up to. But that is a great insight into your mind, Bert, where it's like it does matter to you in a way where
I think name-dropping Chris D'Elia was the worst way he could have possibly gotten this point across because of what Stavros went on to say next. Then Bert completely missed the point of what he was getting at by hyperfixating on Chris's level of fame and notoriety before and after the allegations. And Stavros points this out and makes it very clear that this is Bert showing how fame is the most important thing to him. Then Stavros names some of his personal goals that were a lot more attainable, and it's actually quite refreshing to hear them.
my parents came to America. We grew up poor. I grew up in Baltimore. And my thought process was I just wanted to fucking make $70,000 a year playing B clubs my entire life.
Yeah.
That was the only goal I had. I wanted to put out one special, and I wanted to make one really good special. That like career-wise, I wanted to just be a comedian, and artistically, I wanted one special that I could look at myself in the eyes and say, like, that was a great special. What it did commercially didn't matter to me. So I had an artistic goal and I had a career goal. And I blew past the career goal in a way that I still am having trouble with. And artistically, I'm not there yet. And so that gives me purpose of like, I want to make one thing that I think is great. And so I just feel like I'm kind of playing with house money, and my family's fucking good because of me. And I've kind of done it.
What Stav says here is such a healthy perspective to have as an artist. Making $70,000 a year working comedy clubs and putting out one really solid special is an amazing goal for a comedian to have. He's obviously met the financial requirements of that goal, and now he's just trying to craft the perfect special. But he didn't immediately decide he needed to get bigger and better everything. He's content with what he has. He takes care of his family, and now he can just enjoy the life he's built for himself. That's a noble and fine life to live as someone who has just about everything they've ever wanted. But apparently not everyone is content with that, given Bert saying earlier how he feels like he can never stop working. Stavros then uses this point to transition into how insane what Bert is doing is, and how that type of work as a comedian, despite it being fun sometimes, is way too heavy.
You could argue what you're doing now is fucking insane. Like it is. It's crazy. Like there's no other. You're both doing fucking arenas.
Yeah.
That's fucking crazy, dude.
Sure.
You got buses. You know what I mean? Like, and not one. There's like buses for fucking the stage and shit like that.
Yeah.
I would argue that's fucked up and too much. You know what I mean? Like, I would argue that it's like you're gonna drive yourself fucking crazy. And I've told you this too, where I'm like, you can't keep fucking working like this.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
insane.
Well, the next I get, it's always been a progression: clubs to theaters, theaters to arenas. Arenas, there's like two tiers of arenas. There's hockey arenas where you can get everywhere. There's like 7,000-8,000. It's just a great fucking night. And then you get Amalie, which is what 19, or fucking United Center, and then you go, okay, so 2 at the United Center, and then you're like, wait, what am I chasing?
Yeah,
like this.
That's
what's
my point exactly.
What am I chasing?
Where
It's
does
like,
it
it doesn't go bigger than arenas.
No.
It does stadiums, but who wants to do 72,000 people? I kind of do.
We can see Stavros tell Bert and Tom here what they're doing now is insane and way too much, and then Bert teeters on the edge of being self-aware of how crazy this is and how he doesn't even really know what he's chasing aside from all the fame. It's also clear that Bert values the type of venues he plays more than the quality of the performance he gives, which I don't personally agree with, but it's whatever. Then Stavros is basically, in the kindest way possible, telling Bert and Tom that they're definitely doing way more than he would ever do. And if you asked most comedy fans what they would rather do if they became a comedian that was successful, I think a lot of them would rather do what Stavros does than what Bert does. Then Stavros circles back to talking about how American culture basically promotes this idea of more, and how no amount of money is ever enough. And Bert basically says he doesn't even really know what he gets most of the time from this.
Life isn't just career and working, and that is a very American thing of like, let me accumulate more and more and more, and let me no amount of money is enough. And that's like a fucked up way of thinking. I think that we all can't help it. That's how our society is structured. But I'm trying to like stay away from that.
I wish I was more grounded like that. And I don't know what I'm chasing, and I don't know what I'm trying to prove. Maybe I'm trying to prove it to myself. They were like, it's a really great show. And they were like, can you believe that you created this? And I said, no. And they said, why did you create this? And I said, I was drunk. And I said, because if I didn't create it, I wouldn't be invited. And they were like,
that's fucking crazy.
And I was like,
This might be the psychology of all of it.
Yeah.
If I didn't do it, no one was going to ask me to do it. And I want to have a party. And so if I don't create it, no one's going to ask me to do it.
That's also not true.
Well, now it's not because I've done all these huge things. But if I didn't do those huge things, I would have never been invited. I feel like.
But that's also like if that's why people are showing up, those aren't people you want to be around anyway.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like the people that would have been there if shit was just going okay. Those are your actual. That's who you want to spend time with. But if you think you had to achieve something to get people to fucking hang out with you, then it's like being the fucking rich kid with an N64 who nobody actually fucking likes.
Wait,
like,
is that me?
No, but
shit.
but it's like that's not what you should be striving for. Is my point. And you know, maybe even those people that would have been around, maybe you're not paying attention to them because you're striving for other mother. Oh hell yeah!
Oh, Campari Spritz.
Yeah.
My sister caught it. You drinking one too?
What Bert says about not being invited unless he did it himself seems like a very honest fear. I see why he feels that way, but even after Stavros tells him it's not true and how that would attract people that he wouldn't want to be around anyway, Bert doesn't really resonate with this point at all and immediately zones out when his sister brings them drinks. Bert has been friends with these guys for a really long time, so I don't think that this drunken confession he made is true. I know a lot of people online don't find Bert funny, and there's a lot of pages dedicated to trashing him, but I genuinely think Bert is a nice guy who is just a little too obsessed with being the center of attention. And I know a lot of comedians are like that, but Bert takes it to a whole new level. Bert's comedy is not for me, but I sincerely really hope that he doesn't take this desire to always do more and more and more, because if he stays addicted to the drunk frat boy lifestyle, it might lead him to some serious health issues. Whether you think Bert is funny or not, I would hope he doesn't end up hitting a wall like this and can get the drinking and partying under control sooner rather than later. Also, a side note about comedy at an arena, I think it fucking sucks. The only comedian I've ever seen at an arena was Dave Chappelle, and it was awesome to see Chappelle do comedy, but being in a nosebleed seat for $150 is just too fucking much. And I think theaters are the way to go. That's just my personal opinion though. I think theaters and halls are much better venues for comedians to go to once they've elevated their ticket sales to needing bigger venues. But anyway, what did you guys think of this? Do you think Stavros is right about Bert Kreischer and his lifestyle? Do you think it's too much and is unsustainable for him? Or do you think Bert can keep this up? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you're new. Also, check the link below to see some bonus content on my Patreon. Until next time, I love you guys, and I'll talk to you later.
What about the man grate?
Is that like a genital cleanser?
No! No, my God!